You're listening to In Sickness, a podcast about caregiving with Allison Breininger and Justin Bima.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Saturday to you.
Yeah, glad the week is over.
Yeah. How's it going over there?
We had kind of an eventful week.
Yeah.
Tuesday, I was making dinner, and Sarah called me over because there was something wrong with Mosey's eye.
Yeah. Mosey the dog.
Mosey the dog. And looking at it, it looked like there was a tiny contact lens right in the center of her eye.
Oh.
And that seemed concerning because Mosey does not wear contacts. And so what do we do? And so we called the vet. There's a vet on call that called us back. And she was like, if she's not pawing at it or anything, it's probably okay. You can bring her in the morning and we'll take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Seems sensible. She also used a word like corneal ulcer.
Oh, gosh.
Which didn't sound good. And so, but she was also, there's a 24-hour vet clinic that we partner with that's, it's like 30 minutes away from us.
Okay.
And so Sarah and I talked about it, and we weren't going to sleep.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's this thing with her eye and it's going to be a problem if she starts trying to paw it. We don't have a cone to put on her head.
Yeah.
We do now have a cone in case something happens in the future, So we decided to go. And for me, part of that, I don't know if it's part of the decision, but part of the how I'm seeing this is we're going to be rushing out of the house very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
which is something Sarah's going to be on adrenaline. And when she's on adrenaline, she crashes after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is already fitting into the other things that are going on this week. This is going to be a huge energy expenditure for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to be waiting in the car for a while. And so I'm seeing the days after this and what it's going to do for Sarah. And also I don't want my dog to go blind or whatever's wrong.
Yeah. Right.
So we went and we get there and we call. It's because it's COVID. You park in the parking lot, you call them and kind of check in over the phone. And we explain what's going on. They send us to their website to fill out paperwork. And so there's check boxes do you want your dog to perform CPR on your dog, or DNR stuff for your dog, which was heavy.
Gosh.
And then so we get that filled out, and I go to take another look at Mosey's eye, and the thing is gone.
What?
Yeah. And I looked a little closer, and down in the corner of her eye, there was a little loop, and it was a little hair.
Oh my goodness.
That was in her eye.
Oh my
and so
goodness.
we flipped out, these new dog owners, because she had a hair in her eye. So Sarah took it out. We called the place we were at, and we're like, I'm sorry for wasting your time. Turns out it was a hair, and we headed home. So to then have, it wasn't a necessary thing, and
right.
And so Sarah did spend the next several days completely wiped out in bed, recovering
because
from
of
it.
the emotional. I mean, you're so attached
the emotional
to this
whiplash
little
of
dog,
that,
and so the emotional piece of it too.
Yep.
Well, and I think as I listen to you, friend, here you are, you're used to doing this kind of thing for the human level, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even hearing you say okay, we saw this thing, and then what does that mean? And then we called the doctor, and we know about the on-call, and do we go in tonight? You know what I mean? It just strikes me as I listen that now you have another creature that you are caring for.
Right.
Right. So not only is that huge, but then at the same time, you're thinking about the moment, and also you're having to think all the way down the road of tomorrow and the next day and the next day, she's going to be impacted by this expenditure of energy.
Right.
So for any family, that would have been this really tremendously stressful evening. And for you and your caregiving role, I just can hear that it was to the nth degree because of all the extra pieces. Because I mean, for a while, she wasn't even going in the car, right? And so just a regular trip down the road would be a big deal, let alone hop in the car and emergency vet.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I am glad it ended the way it did.
Yeah, I am as well. But certainly took its toll.
And that fortunately, I hope they didn't charge you for just sitting.
No, well, I haven't seen any bills in the mail. I'm assuming we're not. We never gave any credit card information, so.
Good. Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And I would guess that like if you looked at it, it was what, like 2 hours total or something, right? 3 hours total.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet impacted your entire week.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what about you? How's how
I
things
can't
over
top
there?
that. Not that I want to.
Right.
We're good. Maya finished her freshman year of high school.
Oh, congratulations.
And it's exciting to think that, you know, she was online all year. And so it's exciting to think that she will be in in-person school next year with actual humans.
Oh, that's great.
Feels amazing. I know. So that's exciting. And my parents had their 50th wedding anniversary. So we went into a restaurant.
Yeah. Wow.
For the first time, which was a big deal. And it was like in a private room, but with 10 people. And so that felt pretty good. Felt kind of like strange, but also great. And just to be able to do that and to celebrate that in that way, because we didn't know months ago, like, are we going to be able to really celebrate together? So a couple of fun things like that have happened lately that have been just really nice.
Oh, that's good.
And also, I think from when we talked last time, I'm trying to space things out a little more and not just be like, let's do all the things. Mother Nature has sort of forced us into that. In Minnesota, it has been like 99 degrees for like 2 weeks. And so that has actually helped me slow down a little bit, because it's like, we can't walk, we can't garden, we can't go, meet people outside. And so although it's sad, it's also a little bit like, I guess I'll just have to take a nap. I guess I'll just have to calm down a little bit. So that's been kind of nice. But yeah, something I wanted to talk to you about today.
Yeah.
I don't know if like all the caregiving gurus like went to a conference lately or what, but I saw like 3 different things this week on social media from different caregiving platforms.
Right.
That all had this sort of theme that like out of caregiving, you find your purpose and your meaning. And isn't it so great that you get to do this and that this transforms you into this beautiful way? Multiple things I have seen about that this week. So before I speak to how I feel about that, I am wondering, when you hear me say that, like, how does that sit with you?
Is there a different caregiving experience that these people are like in, or a different situation? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe what? Maybe we call this caregiving and they call like, dancing. I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know.
It feels like it can, like that kind of language can get close to like that toxic positivity kind of thing, where it's like,
for sure,
that here's this difficult, impossibly difficult thing that you're having to do, this thing that's upended your entire life. But isn't it great that you can find a meaning in that? Which that is not bright siding, that isn't helpful. But also, I have not found meaning in this. At any point, I would choose to not have this be our experience. Yeah. I think
there are things like Sean and I have talked about that it, like, our life is certainly very different. And I think there are some things like, I feel like as a family, we're closer and, all these things, right? And I think I see the world in a different way. And, like there are some things that have, my perspective is different.
Right.
And I don't know that, like you said, like, it's not like I would have been like, well, I'm super glad this happened so I could have this new perspective. And I think when you were talking about toxic positivity, like that word but is so huge, right? And so here's one of the things I saw.
Okay.
BJ Miller, who I actually really, really love. He's a palliative care doctor, and I've heard him on some podcasts, and I heard him on Kate Bowler's podcast and just loved it. So I was a little bit sad when I saw that he said this. He said, we could simply say caregiving is very hard, but there's that but it's also amazing and pulls us into new places. It challenges us and it can feel incredibly good. BJ. What do you, he says, and then it says, we love BJ's outlook on how caregiving changes us for the better. Now, so I've thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
Because certainly there are people who are having hard times as a caregiver, and maybe they need, saying like, this is really hard. Maybe they need someone to also be, maybe they're in a deep spot And just saying this is really hard doesn't fully serve them. Maybe they need someone to be like, you know what? I'm going to help pull you out of this hard spot. And maybe one of the ways I can do that is by helping you think about, is there a bright side? Is there some meaning? Right. So I could see that there's maybe some people
for sure
who might need that like little ray of sunshine.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of us already have all the toxic positivity like saturating us.
Right.
And we really do need someone to say, it is really challenging.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
I see you. I see that this is challenging. Done.
Right.
Because if I didn't have spaces like this with you and I saw this, it would be like, oh, wait, it's supposed to feel incredibly good. Well, I must be doing it wrong.
Yeah. I don't.
You're speechless.
Right.
You are speechless over there.
I'm trying to, like, does it feel good to, let's see. So if Sarah's having a bad day, she's not doing well, and I can do something as her caregiver to take away some of that pain, whether that's giving her medication or helping her remember some of the like things to do to help. I guess I feel good that we were able to reduce her pain in that moment, but it's not, the feeling of my wife is suffering is so much greater than like any feeling of like, I'm finding meaning in this experience, or this experience is changing me for the better. I mean, certainly, like you said, I have a wildly different perspective that has come about over the past years from before Sarah got sick. And I think that I am a more compassionate person. I think I'm tuned into that a lot more. I think I see more of the hard times people are going through.
Yeah, and for sure.
And those are all things that are true. And I guess you could say that those are things that maybe make me a better, quote, better person. But I wouldn't, that trade-off is still not worth it. I'm not glad that I had this experience to make me a better, to bring about that different perspective.
Right. What you said there, Justin, was so powerful about the seeing your wife in pain and suffering. Like the fact that even if you were like, oh, I've got a pill or this or whatever, like I've got a thing that I can give to her in this moment that can reduce that. Like, well, I guess that could feel good, right? That you're able to help your wife. That's like a fraction of the feeling of watching her suffer.
Right.
And watching her be in pain and watching, you know what I mean? Like it feels like that's like the most uneven scale of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back to that, and I know I've told this story before, but that very the moment that like this whole negative space concept came to me was at a caregiver support group with Fanconi anemia spouses like myself, where I was like, these are my people. Here we go. We can talk about this. And the social worker said, how y'all feeling? And they all, like one after one, were like, it's such a gift and such a blessing. And again, like sort of like you said a minute ago, like, am I in the wrong room? Like, are they here talking about a different topic?
This is a Venn diagram I'm not familiar with.
Right. Well, right. Like what, how, but what? No. And so what they were saying was like, I'm so glad that I can be this person. I get to be the person to care for my spouse. No, I hear that. Like, I'm glad that I have the time and the capacity and the energy, although barely, to do this role, and that I don't have to like bring someone in, or, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I am glad for that. And I wish no one had to do the role.
Exactly.
I wish he didn't need the role. So I don't know. Here's another one. Another one I saw this week. This person says, let me show you how caregiving can be a source of well-being.
Oh. Well, that has not been my experience. I know that I've talked a lot about how this has negatively impacted my well-being as a source of anxiety, as a like just feeling exhausted, burning out.
Right.
It's an incredibly taxing thing. So I don't.
When we've talked about like the research that we're all inundated with about
right.
like,
Yeah.
hey, caregivers, you're doomed, basically.
Right. Yeah.
This is going to negatively impact your physical, your mental, your emotion, all the things about you. It's going to impact that. So like when this person says it can be a source of your well-being, I'm like, oh, friend, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hear things like this, and I really do have that moment of like, are there other people going through this and having a completely different experience? And right. It just feels like such a disconnect, because this has not been a source of well-being. This has not given me any meaning. This is not so many things. And it's entirely possible and probably true that there are people who that, like you said, to get through, like that's the kind of language that is really helpful for them to get through like a hard situation. And there's people who are caregivers in all kinds of different capacities. You know, we are both 24/7 with our spouses. Like our like number one person in the world is the person that is impacted.
Yep.
And that's not to minimize anyone else's caregiving situation.
Right.
But it is, I guess it's not a singular experience.
Right.
And I don't hear that caveat with these types of statements.
Right. In fact, the caveat is backwards. I mean, the BJ thing was like, it can be challenging, but it can also feel good. Right. That's like the caveat is like the toxic positivity part. And I wonder, you like when you said like that is not the experience that we have had. Now, I feel like you and I have over the years like met and encountered enough caregivers in very different experiences that I think we're not like, you and I are not like the Lone Rangers out here that are having a hard time, you know? And so what just really gets to me when I see this kind of thing is that I feel like you and I are able to like have these conversations and be like, whoa, this feels crazy. I'm still going to say it's hard. Right. But so many people who don't have that space, if they had seen these 3 things in 1 week or any of them, they would have been like, oh, I guess I should be finding some meaning. Guess if this doesn't feel good, I should be doing something different. Like,
I guess I shouldn't say how hard this is and how much I'm not finding purpose in it. Yeah.
Right. It's going to push them like even further into the negative space. Right. So the third one I saw was somebody sent me it was a webinar about how to care for yourself as a caregiver. And you know how I feel about that whole self-care stuff. During the interactive session, you will learn how to unpack some of the meaning and connection behind your caregiving experience. What? And so it's like this whole meaning thing that just feels, I don't know. It feels like, can't things just be hard?
Right. Exactly.
And I see this a lot in the chronic illness and cancer community as well, right? That people are like, well, I got cancer and I'm so glad because it changed my life and it this and it that and I'm a fighter and I'm going to, you know, and it's like, can we just say I had cancer and it's really hard.
Yeah.
And I wish I didn't get it. And I hate it. And I wish this had never happened.
Right.
Can't we say that?
Yeah.
And say like along the way, some things may have happened that I'm glad about. I mean, I think about this, like you and I would never know each other. Right.
Right.
I mean, certainly good things have come from this. But I think if I was like, had to like every day go through the hard stuff, being like, okay, what's the meaning of this one? It feels exhausting.
Well, and it's another level. It's another task sort of to like add on top of everything. Is like, it's not that I'm just having to experience this. It's like, I also need to unpack and find meaning and find purpose. And and I mean, I keep going back to like, clearly, I think that this language it must be helpful for some people for it to be so prevalent or for it to have come about, but it doesn't, there's so much more of just that and not enough of like, this is just hard, because there's also people who that is what they need.
I wonder though, when you say like, it must be helpful because it's prevalent. Let's be honest. There's a lot of things that are prevalent in this world that are not helpful.
Well, that's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, like if maybe the people, the leaders, the people who are writing these things think it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess that people sign up for them for sessions like this, because they're like, well, this is what I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, one of the pieces that makes me frustrated and sad is I feel like lately caregivers are coming more into the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of reasons with COVID and what some of the things Biden is doing, like people are talking about caregiving more than they had been, which is this incredible opportunity. And I feel like people are taking the opportunity to have workshops and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So if caregivers are like, okay, look, there's a workshop for me. And then the workshop is like, find meaning and care for yourself. I'm going to be like, oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like this moment is like, here, and is being used in a different way. And again, like you said, there's no one right thing. Mm-hmm. It just feels like the market or whatever is saturated.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
With this language and this perspective. And so if I was a caregiver who hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about this, I would just be like, well, I guess that's what's supposed to be happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wonder, like, what the webinar would be that we would get an email for and like be like, oh, that is something that speaks to me and I want to take part in. And I think it's not as exciting. It's like, it would be, I don't know, it would come here how this experience has been really hard for some people, and hear that other people are struggling, and that the fact that you are struggling and you feel lost or burned out, like you're not alone in that. And kind of, I don't know what the message beyond that is. It's just like,
that's it.
We see what you're going through.
I mean, that, like, your description right there, like, makes me want to cry, because it's like, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Like that, because I think the difference as I listen to that is that's like, come as you are. This is, you're doing it. You're just doing your thing, and it's hard, and we see you, and you don't need to do anything different. Whereas all of these are like, you're not quite doing it right. If you're not finding meaning, if you're not taking enough care for yourself, you're not like you said earlier, like the task piece. And so not only does it make it feel to me like now my to-do list just got longer, it also makes me feel like I'm not being successful, and I'm not doing this the way I'm supposed to be doing it, whatever that is. Whereas your description is like, oh, thank you. I can just come and be me. And there are other people. Oh, we should hold that webinar, because I want to go to it. Will you hold that webinar for me?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking back, and I'm recalling how, like, for years and years of being a caregiver, like, I just felt so isolated, in part because, like, all of the stuff out there just I didn't connect with, and I don't remember exactly what this is probably a part of that, you know, finding the positive or whatever was not speaking to me at all. And I'll be honest, one of the first times I came across something that was like, okay, this is my experience, I connect with this, was something that you had written.
Oh.
And like, I think I emailed you after that, like, thank you for writing this. This is like, I feel seen, or something like that. And so, one, thank you for being that voice for people over the years. I don't know, had I not come across people like you who just acknowledging the hardship and just speaking to that. Yeah. I don't know where I'd be in this experience. You know?
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And I mean, that is my goal, right? I want people to feel seen. And I think one of the biggest compliments or whatever that means so much to me is when people say, like, I feel seen, I feel heard, and you have my words.
Right.
Like, that feels really powerful, which tells me that it's not just you and me. Right. And there's a whole lot of us out there who have not found spaces like that, because there's so many of these, like, how to care for yourself webinars and messages that are being, put down their throats. I have thought a lot in the last 2 weeks since last time you and I talked about we were talking about anxiety, of course, because it's our favorite topic. It's not our favorite, our most prevalent feeling that you and I share. And you said something about how exhausting it is to be walking around having anxiety and also not being able to like say that you have anxiety or share. And so you have to like look like and act like, I feel fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. When actually your body and nervous system are not.
Right.
And how exhausting that is. So it's like this double whammy. And so I've just really been thinking so much about what you said about that. And I think that applies here too, right? So if I'm a caregiver and I'm like, this is so hard and I'm so tired and I just like wish this wasn't the way things were going. And then anything I see just says like, find your meaning, right? And then I go to this webinar in which I'm like, yeah, I'm going to find my meaning now. I guess I'll go journal about it. I don't know. You know, like how extra exhausting that must be to feel like they have to hide it as well.
Right. And I think that goes back to just partly like culturally, we don't talk about difficult things and hard things with each other very much. Like, how is your day?
Fine.
You're not supposed to say how horrible your day actually is.
Right.
And so like anxiety and things like that, where it's like you have to, or you're conditioned to act like everything's, you're put together and everything's going well. I think with caregiving, it's the same thing. Like people asking how you're doing, they don't want to, this is a broad generalization. There are certainly people who really want to know what's going on. I think, and I think that's clear. But I don't think they're looking for or expecting this is, you know, the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I don't know. I feel lost. I feel alone. All of those things.
Yeah.
And so because that's socially kind of the norm, it's like, and that voice just gets kind of silenced and it's not prevalent. It's not out there. And so,
Yeah. I think about like, you know, we talked a long time ago about like the backpack that we have that we're carrying all the things.
Yeah.
And it's also like now the backpack has to be invisible.
Right.
So we have this backpack that's full of like boulder after boulder after boulder of hard things. And then it's like, well, don't tell anybody.
Well, and stand up straight. Don't like show that you're the weight of it on you.
Yeah. Right. And so it's like, don't tell anyone you're wearing the backpack. And then if you do, you have to make it seem like you love carrying this backpack.
Right.
Like it's not heavy and it's building your muscles and do you know what I mean? Like, so either be totally silent about it or make it be like it's the greatest thing that's ever happened. But you can't actually ever stop to be like, my back hurts. This is heavy. I would really like to put this down. Like you can't do that. I mean, it's interesting when you say the thing about when people say, how are you? And you're like, they don't want you to say like, caregiving is actually the hardest thing I've ever done. That feels uncomfortable to the listener, right? We've talked about that before. And so like individuals tend to do the whole like, well, but at least you, and so I feel like these, I don't know what to even call them, influencers or practitioners or whatever. Like, I don't know if they are having like a giant version of that. Like, how can we fix it? How can we, I don't know. I just can't totally figure out what their like MO is in doing that.
Right.
You know?
I do. And I don't want to be cynical. I would imagine that there is a number of people who genuinely are trying to help people. And like, this is how they're doing that. I think there's probably people who webinars like this, for example, maybe that sells better than something that's like, you know,
like we're all doomed. Let's come talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I would go to that one just for the record.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would. No, I get what you're saying, that it's not necessarily just like, and I'm not trying to say that people are just doing it for the money.
Right.
I wonder how many of them are caregivers. How many of them are practitioners who just are like, this is something I think this group of people would like. Maybe some of them are people who have been caregivers and maybe have found great meaning.
Right.
And so they want to share that.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me like nervous and sad for our caregiving community
Mm-hmm.
to be inundated with those messages.
Right.
Because I just think that while for some people that may be exactly what they need, I think for a lot of us, we need more compassion and honesty and just a space to be exactly who we are.
Right.
And to say like, you're enough.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing your best. You are doing just
Right.
enough. And it is just keep on going. And you are not alone. And in probably every other house, if not more on your block, there is another person caregiving just like you. And they're not talking about it either. And it's really hard for them too. And you see them smiling as they walk by, but really it's really hard for them too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I needed.
Right. How is it, how do you feel like it, you said you don't know where you would be in your journey if you hadn't found people like me and many others who are honest about it. Like,
right.
Like how can you guess? Like, can you imagine like what if you hadn't found us and we're just sort of hearing those toxic positivity messages,
right?
Like, what might have happened?
I think, I would not be here talking about my caregiving experience because it's like hearing other people having this same experience and being able to talk about it. Like that's kind of what allowed me to open up about it. So that's one thing. And in doing that, I feel much less isolated in my experience. And so I think I feel more, I don't know, I guess I feel sort of part of a community. And it's not like, it's not a community where we're available to like hang out with each other.
Right.
Or like, things like that. But it's a group of like-minded people. And so there's where there are people who see and understand. And like that's a basic human need to feel like seen and heard and understood.
Yes, I hear you. It's interesting when you say that you started sharing your story because I feel like you and our shout out to our friend Brian who follows and listens, I know, and others, I think same thing. Like it was like hit a point where like found accounts like mine and others, and then we're like, oh, I'm going to start talking about this. Like I never talked about this before. And so just having being able to like reveal this part of your life. And like, I think for some people, like once they start talking about it, they got like, I know Brian has said that he got way more support for his family because people didn't necessarily know what was going on.
Right.
And so I think it's a huge benefit of feeling like, oh, I can tell my story and it's okay if my story is messy. And I don't have to be like, but bright side,
right,
as I tell it. Yeah. I wonder for people, like we talked about this one day, but one of our listeners had started to tell her story a little bit. And then she had like a random family member reach out and be like, yeah, don't talk about yourself as a caregiver. That's not okay. So I just wonder for some people, like if they don't feel like they have supportive people around them or they don't feel comfortable sharing their story, but they still want to kind of be seen. Like, I don't know, like what are ways that can happen for them? Because certainly not some people, they're just private and they don't necessarily want, or some people, the person they're caring for doesn't want the story out in the world.
Right.
Do you have any ideas about that?
I mean, I don't know that. I don't know. I think it felt like just chance that I found like the people that I found to like hear their stories and feel seen. I mean, certainly if someone feels like they don't have anything like that, they can reach out to us. And either
for sure.
we'll listen and commiserate or, maybe we know someone who is in a similar situation to connect with. But yeah, I think that's part of the problem is that all of the like public facing caregiver support stuff, like it either is this like find the purpose or meaning, or it's toxic positivity stuff, or it's like self-help, self-care, all of that. Yeah, it's hard. I wish that there was a go-to place to say, hey, this is where you can go and be seen. I don't know.
Yeah. What do you feel like that, like when you say a place, what do you mean by that?
I guess a community or like a space. a place where
Right.
you can vent to other people
Yep.
and maybe, you don't have to talk about it publicly, but there's these people who
Yeah.
are in your shoes or have been
Yep.
in your shoes
For sure.
and like they're just going to listen.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
I think that's
sure.
needed a lot. And I haven't personally been a part of a lot of caregiving support groups. And so I would hope that there are some where that is what they are. And I believe that there probably are.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot that are not that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I wish that were different.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I've led some support groups for the Fanconi anemia community, and it's just been really, great to be the facilitator, but also to be a member of that community, to just have a space where we're like, this is hard. And this is a place where you can say that this is hard. And people have just really responded to that. And to be able to have that place where, like, especially in a rare disease community, it's like, these are the people who get it.
Right.
Because they're in such similar situations. Yeah. I wonder about too, like, even things like this podcast, right? Like, if someone's listening and they don't feel like they can reach out and say the words, they could share an episode, right? Yeah. And then just be like, hey, there's this interesting thing I heard. Right. And I'm not doing this to like promote us. I'm just saying that, like, you and I have gotten pretty comfortable at just saying the thing. And other people might not be in that space, or might not have communities that are supportive of that. And so if anyone wants to use us to be the bad guys, to say the hard things, use it, use this to just say, like, oh, these people said this thing. Isn't that interesting? without nobody, they don't know us. So it's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're happy to do that.
I always hope that with my writing as well, is like share something I wrote, because if you don't, that way, if there's backlash, it's backlash against this random lady in Minnesota. It's not, it's not like something that they have to feel, but then hopefully the message can still get across. Yeah. Well, I think that I'm glad that you and I are this, a little teeny force in this community. We're not quite as, prominent as the folks that are posting all the self-care stuff, but maybe we can get there. But I just want people to hear and to acknowledge that even if you're seeing all this that's saying, like, find meaning and self-care, first of all, like, if that works for you, fantastic.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with any of that. And if you see that and you're like, wait, I'm supposed to be finding meaning, I'm just tired. Like, know that we get it. Yeah. And we're tired too. And we wish this wasn't our journey. And we see you, we hear you, and we're here for you in all the messiness, and it doesn't have to be pretty, and you don't have to find your well-being or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I hope none of those folks listen to this podcast and come after us, but
it's all right.
So, yeah. Okay.
Well, here's to a week of not finding meaning in your caregiving experience.
And if we do,
that's fine too. Right.
That's fine too. But let's take that off of our list of things we got to do this week. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I hope that the week ahead for you is calm.
That is absolutely what I'm hoping for. I'll do everything I can.
Every week I just want it to be just boring. Just the most boring
it's the
week.
Best.
It's all I want. All right. Here's to a boring week without meaning. Perfect. How about that?
All right.
Great.
We'll see ya.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to In Sickness. Find us online at insickness.care or on Instagram at insicknesspodcast. You can send your questions and comments to insicknesspodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or fellow caregiver, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening, and take care.